Welcome Ram Viswanathan also. Ram Kanwal, please.
Which one? This one?
You can pick your throne.
Okay.
Mr. Kanwal. So with this we will start our fireside chat. Whichever. Please give them a round of applause.
So I just wanted to take a moment to set the stage, right? When the British took over India in the 1800s, India was the world's largest, most productive, most traded economy. Anywhere between 25 to 30% of the world GDP was, done in India. The British didn't come to civilize us or educate us like they claim now. They came to loot us, and loot they did, right? So when the British left India in 1947, India was reduced to beggars. The land of beggars and slave charmers, that's the way, the image was. And only 2% of the world's GDP was, Indian GDP was only 2% of the world's GDP. But the tragedy starts in 1947, when our own government took over and became socialist. And for 44 years, they prevented our entrepreneurship, and our own, enterprise. And by 1991, India was only 1% of the world's GDP. It had become totally irrelevant on the world stage. So now we are here, 34, 35 years later, India is on the move. We are 3.5% of world GDP, from 1% to 3.5%. So India also became the fourth largest economy last year. And we are on our way, we will sleepwalk to become the third largest in another 3-4 years from now. So are we happy with number 3 in the world? That's where I start. How many of you are happy that we'll be number 3? At least 1 or 2 people. Yeah. Should we try to be number 2? And should we try to reclaim our rightful place of being number 1 that we were in 1800? How many of you think we should do it? So, I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm not saying anytime soon, but we ought to have that dream, 50-year dream. We have started to empower our entrepreneurs. India's new branding is a land of entrepreneurs, a technically savvy, powerhouse, a land of entrepreneurs. We are the third largest entrepreneurial ecosystem now in the world. But it's a puny 200,000 entrepreneurs, registered entrepreneurs in the government. And can we have 1% Indians eventually become entrepreneurs? Which is the number, another number is almost 2%. Can we have million entrepreneurs by 2030? Can we have 10 million entrepreneurs by 2047? That's what it would take to become, the number 1. And so I want to tell you that we ought to nurture a dream. We ought to think and plan. Do some long-term thinking, long-term, play the long game. 50 years out, we ought to be where we are. Another couple of minutes. The 19th century was the British century. After they took over India. 20th century was the American century. 21st century started out to be an American century, the sole superpower, but for a while it appears to be Chinese century. China has raced ahead big time, right? And and so it's a big challenge for India to dream to be number one. But it's a very good prospect that we will be number one. Americans are messing up. They are messing up big time. What made them great is not what they want to be. Land of immigrants, focus on science, open trade, free trade, building tariff walls, doesn't inspire anybody. You can't compete with anybody anymore, right? So, growing up at universities, shutting down the research, so America is messing big time. China has terminated the sin back in the 70s of one-child policy. And that's making China, sort of shrinking in size very rapidly. China will be losing about half of its population by year 2100. Unless they can turn the ship around, and it looks nearly impossible that they will be able to turn the ship around. So there is an opportunity for India. India is becoming now what America was, confident. And so, having said all that, I want to come back to TiE. TiE was not an ordinary networking organization formed in Silicon Valley. TiE was an inspired organization after the 1991 change in India. Most of us thought of TiE as a movement, a settled freedom movement for India. We thought in terms of having achieved our freedom before, and now that we have this new path forward in the reform in 91, can we turn India into a entrepreneurial country? So that was a spiritual dream from the day one. The TiE founders didn't think they were talking ordinary terms. We talked in very lofty, very spiritual terms. We thought of entrepreneurship as a freedom movement for India. The entrepreneurs as the new freedom fighters of India. And when I hear people, what's in it for me as a child member, I cringe. There's nothing in it for you. If that's what you want, you are not being TiE. We are here for a larger purpose, larger cause. And if that's not good enough for you, you probably don't belong in the TiE. We are here to make sure that we have our rightful place. We have done well as people. By the way, the Indians are as smart people as any out there. Nobody is smarter than us. And we have proven that over and over. We finally have our chance. We are not going to be socialist. We are going to be empowered people. Who achieve our potential at individual level and at a collective level. And we ought to do that through this entrepreneurship. So my book has that basic theme in there, that you ought to think of yourself, how do I achieve my potential? How do I use the word tapasya. I use the word tapasya. Entrepreneurship is your personal tapasya. You go find yourself, achieve your potential, and through that process, you maximize your potential. Achieve your potential, and then maximize the opportunity for everybody else. So I do encourage you to read the book. It took me about 2.5 3 years to get the book done, and I had to go back several times to make sure that messaging was proper. There is a message in it for Americans also to explain to them, the sudden rise of Indian Americans and India, has been 30-40 years in the making. Thank you.
All right. Everybody able to hear me?
Yes.
Good? All right.
Yeah.
It's such a pleasure having you here, Kanwal. Last time we had you here was in 2022 at the TiECon that we hosted, and thanks for making Dallas your first stop on your book tour in the U.S.
Yeah, I was going to say that New York event was cancelled, so this is truly the first public event for my book launch.
So it's a real honor for us. Thank you, and I'm especially happy and proud that you're in my neighborhood, my clubhouse, so to speak. So it's a greater delight for me, and thanks again. what has struck me over the years in having all those great conversations with you have been several things. Your straightforwardness, your sometimes blunt responses to people that ask questions, and also the variety of different topics that you touch on throughout the course of your journey. You have had an amazing journey. And I tell to myself, if I could be half as relevant as you are when I get your age, I will consider my life as being successful. So, thanks again. I picked up the book in the Chennai launch when you were in India, in Chennai, and I have to say I finished it in one sitting. And very entertaining, very inspirational, and I've got a lot of things in my mind in terms of what all I want to cover, but obviously we have very limited time here. Harini will take the mic away from me if I go beyond half an hour. So I'll do my best to keep it that short. But let's go back, go to the book, and the very beginning, the early years of your journey and what you had to go through in India. I saw that you were making do with 200 rupees a month, something like that. And I said to myself, what, 200 rupees? How could you even do that? But more importantly, the more serious question is frugality as a virtue in entrepreneurship is something that I think is not well regarded these days. I think us Texans are better off in that, but in the valley and other places, the attitude is to raise, spend.
Especially in California, right?
Yeah. So youngsters are under constant pressure to raise, and no matter what the business realities might be, and they are at times in crossroads in terms of how to actually manage that pressure against building a viable business. So, what is your take on that in terms of how do you balance frugality, business viability versus this?
So first thing about the 200 rupees, right? 200 rupees in India in 50s was very good money. They were I don't remember in 50s, but in 1960s, the year I came to US, they were 5 rupees to $1. And the salary of an officer, working for the Indian Army, starting salary of an officer was 400 rupees. Starting salary of an IAS officer was 400 rupees. This is in the 60s. So I can imagine back in the 50s, probably was, 12 rupees was a lot of money. And it wasn't enough to live, in the life of luxury, but enough to pay for the staples, food on the table, I would think, in a simple education. So, but there's a chapter on the book, my mother entrusted me, to manage the household budget when I was only 12 years old. And it was, one very large family. She was, busy doing, the cooking and the laundry and the cleaning and everything else you need to do, to run the household. So I was assigned the job of maintaining, the budget, shopping, the staples and the fruits and the vegetables and all that. And I did that very ably, and that's where I learned to manage. You need to raise money, as an entrepreneur, to make it happen. Very hard to bootstrap. You need resources, you need to compete. But the notion that, infinite amount of money is available, money is, is easy, is a nonsense notion. The hallmark of a good, successful startup is a capital efficiency. Without capital efficiency, you will go nowhere. I have seen enough people raise a lot of money and go nowhere. Exodus Communications, the company that put many of the Indians on the map, was worth $30 billion. They never made profits. When they started, I was an investor there. they were they were doing really well. They were at the start of the internet age. They pioneered the data center business. They were doing between $1 million a month in revenue. They were burning $800,000. Which was fine. Because that's what you do. You're building, you're hiring, you're growing. They were doing $10 million a month in revenue. They were burning $8 million a month, which wasn't that great. But money was available to borrow. They were doing $100 million a month in revenue, and they were burning $80 million a month, coming into 2000. And when the music stopped, Wall Street stopped lending, they went down from 30 billion in valuation to zero in 6 months. They went from $100 million a monthly revenue, bankrupt in 6 months because they couldn't borrow money. The money was not available anymore. So I wrote recently, of course, money has a way of disappearing, not being available when you need it. Because if you're depending on the external financing, the external factors can change overnight. And that I have seen it happen. So the goal was up to become break-even profitable at some reasonable size. Get your business model to clicking. Don't depend upon the external capital beyond what is basically required. Grow from the internal surpluses. If you don't, we know what happened to Baizu in India recently. I can give you example after example. Let's give you example of Paytm. Paytm went public 3 years ago, 4 years ago, at $20 billion valuation. Their last valuation was only $8 billion, about a week ago.
But they don't seem to have learned from those things. And
once you don't learn, eventually pay the price. I tell you, enough examples where the price is paid. Of course, if everybody was losing out, then nobody would be doing that one, right? So enough winners have emerged through the process to people to believe that that's the way to go. The way to go is to get your business model built quickly. You need capital to develop the product. You need capital to get the sales and marketing going. But at some reasonable size, my company, when I did my startup, when it became profitable at $10 million, revenue per year. They step in the book, that at $10 million I was breaking even, making $100,000 of profit that 1 year. The following year I did $22 million and I made about $3 million in profits, and then I converted that. And I was growing 40, 50, 60% year on year. At some level, we have to have a discipline to become profitable. The goal is to become self-sustaining. Becoming profitable is a declaration of freedom. You don't depend on anybody for your survival.
Right. Capital is available in plenty. I think that's one way to look at it in terms of what is available, and then what kind of deals is the capital chasing. So I mean that's a completely different point that we can chase and discuss about how much capital is chasing, how few good deals that are out there. It's a different dynamic, and VCs have that issue in terms of how to get to the good deal.
Yeah, so if VCs were smart, then they would be profitable. So here's the dirty real secret. 90% of all the VCs don't return the capital back to their LPs. 90% of the VCs don't return the capital back. So anybody who treats capital as a commodity very quickly learns the iron rule of capitalism is capital flows towards the most efficient, it finds the most, the best return at the risk-adjusted basis. The notion that capital can go into the companies which are not returning any money and are high risk is a nonsense notion. So we can talk all day about that.
Yeah.
I think the cycles happen. One of the other rules of capitalism is an open loop system. Until market lowers the doom on you, you think the good times should be last forever.
Let's switch topics here. There was a section here in the book where it talks about how you hobnobbed with the who's who of the tech world, the kings of the valley, the Bill Jobs and Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Larry Ellison, and that's great in itself. But what's remarkable is you walked away from many of those deals. How do you walk away from folks like that when people are dying to just get a meeting and get something going with these folks? I know there were some special circumstances, but can you touch on that?
Yeah, I explain all of that in the book. Again, the Bill Gates, Bill Gates came to acquire us. But he came and said, it'll be your honor to be acquired by us. And we don't want to pay you a dime of premium over the market price. Just become one of our companies, will buy you at the market price. And I looked at said, we are public company. How can I tell my shareholders to sell you at the market price? They can sell shares in the open market at that price and be out if they want to be out of echelon. And so I said, no deal. Novel was also just as good a company at the time. They came in and offered 50% premium of our market price. And which deal should I pick? I feel honored to be part of Microsoft, or take 50% premium over stock price and to be part of Novel. There was a situation like that. I thought about there is a part of me which is very idealistic, as you probably heard when I spoke. But there is a part of me which is very cutthroat. Which is you have to be a sensible entrepreneur. You have to manage business in dollar and cents. You have to do your calculations. I tell people, you haven't become a CEO unless you're able to fire your own brother for that type of performance. You have to be able to fire your own brother for that type of performance. You have to be that efficient, that cutthroat, to succeed in this world. So, so you have to have this personality of both types. And Steve Jobs wanted me to acquire Next. As part of Novel, I was having Unix, part of the business for Novel in addition to other things. And he came and said, you guys don't have a desktop. I got a nice Unix desktop. We can go compete with Microsoft, acquire my company. And I said, we are not in a desktop because by choice. We don't have a desktop because we don't want to have a desktop. We are a server company, and we are in servers. And he got upset at me for saying, how can you build a business without having a desktop? So Larry Ellison came to borrow money. He wanted to borrow $200 million from us because Oracle was in trouble, financial trouble. And I offered to loan him the money. I thought at very fair terms, but he wanted, even easier terms than I offered, Those were the, things. I played that game, as the number 2 person at Novel. Novel was the second largest software company at that time. And we were more profitable than Microsoft, by the way, at that time. Ray was 20 years older than me, so he was basically hands off. I was running the company, and so I played that game, and it was a fun game to play.
All right. I know you're an engineer at heart, and have been heavily involved in the network wars and bet heavily on TCP/IP. I don't mean to get too geeky, but I do want to touch on it for a second. And in preference to other networking protocols that were starting to emerge, and that worked out. Having been involved in the standards industry, I've come to realize that market determines standards. My question is, what do you make of the current situation with OpenAI, the policies and standards that are in the making? And how relevant is the current movement? And where do you see things going? Is the market going to determine what policies are going to be set in the AI world? What's your take?
Market always determines. Market always determines. Market is the collective wisdom of the users, right? It's out there. Coming back to TCP/IP, I didn't pick TCP/IP for any other reason than simple reason. It was a working solution available at the time, and there was no alternative working solution available at the time, to connect a disparate computers on a network. Army had spent enough, through ARPANET, and DARPA, enough time and effort to make sure that TCP/IP was able to do file transfers, virtual terminals, and things between all sorts of machines. So when the networking started to happen, there was no working solution possible other than you could supply hardware that my predecessor at Islam was supplying, and waiting for the standards to emerge. And the standards were being talked about for OSI for several years, and maybe HNS, Giraffes protocol. Everybody was talking about standards, and I totally different that. I said, working solution for the customers. They have a pain now, they need a solution now. And if I put TCP/IP on top of Ethernet, I have a working solution now. And my bet was, that should be good enough for people now. We'll worry about the OSI and HNS when the time comes. And again in the book I talk about in purchase order I trust, in God we trust. In purchase order we trust. It was my slogan. And purchase orders were coming in. People were buying. So I wasn't going to fight that, but so as long as the customer is buying, you're getting the positive feedback. And I kept raising prices, and customers were still buying. And so they discovered the book. I raised prices tenfold overnight, and nobody blinked out there. And he said, "Oh, I screwed up. I should have raised prices 100-fold." So I went back and raised prices a second time. So again, the value pricing your product, to deliver the value, that customer needs, is a requirement. You cannot sell a Rolex watch, open your ringtone and say real cheap Rolex watches. Nobody believes it. So when you sell it cheap, this is the, and in the same, in my book again, Manga Roy 8 bar, Sasta Roy bar. When you offer something cheap to the customer, you're not able to provide the quality. You're not able to provide the service that he needs. You're not able to provide the features he needs. He's very unhappy, and you're not getting the money. You're selling cheap. So charge him the money, give him the value, give him the quality, give him the service and support. He might, make some more in with him, but his memory that stuff works. Service is good, and that's the position I took in the So when you talk about things, what will happen? You have to satisfy customer. You have to give them the respect he deserves. You have to give him the quality he deserves. Don't worry about the pricing. Pricing is what you need to be able to deliver what the customer deserves. It's selling cheap, but on the other hand, I see this AI toughness. I just saw this morning the news that OpenAI is raising another $100 billion.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers are so outrageous that, and the circular deals that are going on, I can't make sense of it. Some of the smarter minds here might be able to make some sense of it. But
I'm sure some some winners will get burnt here for sure. I'm 100% sure of that. Which winners I don't know yet.
Let's change gears for a second. I want to turn this to on a personal note. I wouldn't have brought this up except that it is discussed in good detail in the book. You talk about it and you're very open about it, and it's appreciated. You talk about the challenges and the cost that it involves. Entrepreneurship as a journey for people, and personally how it affected your family or somebody you loved and cared for, your wife, what she went through. And my question to you is, considering that entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, it's a very, very intense 24/7 deal, and it does put some pressure on the family. And considering all entrepreneurs, most if not all entrepreneurs, obviously love the family and want to build a good business, have this constant challenge of having to juggle that priority versus building a business, becoming a successful entrepreneur. What would you say to youngsters today that are going through that phase of their lives in terms of balancing? What is your best advice?
So, I guess you're referring to my wife, the mental issues and all that I have in the book. So let me tell you my value system, which I teach to my kids and my nephews and nieces. I tell them, number one priority as a youngster for you in the beginning is education. Get your education. And the number two priority in your life is the health. Maintain your health. Get into good healthy habits. No drugs. And the number three thing in your life is family. So beyond that, nothing matters. I never talk about the working or the money as a priority in your life. The money will come if you're educated, if you're healthy, and you have good, the family life. And define that as a sharpen your brain, make your body strong, and make your soul and your think very, very sound. Family provides that. My wife, grew up in a very, dysfunctional house. Her, mother and father divorced. There were other issues beyond that one when she was teenager. Her mother's mother had divorced. Her mother's grandmother had divorced. So having a divorce in the family was seen as a norm by her. So we are married. We happily married. As I start to do well and start to succeed, she is 100% sure that I'm going to divorce and move on. And there was nothing I could do or say, would change her mind. Better I did, worse she felt. It was nothing to do with me as a person, my behavior. We loved each other. We were really good. We had a wonderful family and wonderful kids. But she couldn't get that offer. Her language would be, you don't need me anyway. And I said, no, I'm not going to leave you anyway. I'm not ever going to leave you. By the way, we were married for 54 years, and she passed away, last year. I could not understand. I could not fight that. She would go through depression bouts, and I finally educated myself enough to say, there's nothing that I could do. All the help she got from outside didn't matter. She got hospitalized for the depression several times. But so I talked about that. There's no shame in that. She loved me. She was my inspiration. I talked about that in the book. Also, one of the reasons I did so well in life was because she's. By the way, my wife was my pen pal for several years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very sweet part of the whole story.
Yes, and first time we met, she's American, genetic, girl. First time we met, in Fort Lauderdale, back in 1970. Within a week I proposed, after, and then, a few months later we got married. And we were married for 54 years, and she was inspiration in the sense that first time somebody believed in me, unconditionally besides my mother. You know, if you read the book, you know, I thought about my father didn't believe that I would amount to much, you know, because of, you know, where I religious, you know, I really did a chapter in the book on that one. And so here was a person, you know, I used as a, my pillar of strength, you know, that who could shape the idea that I would, not divorce her. And whatever times when she was fine, there was no, these came as bouts. These are not constant behavior, right? Like 90% of the time, she was very confident person. She was enjoying the success we had achieved in life. We had beautiful kids. Rajayani is my daughter, and my son. But there was this issue, that he could outrun those demons she had.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kanwal. I thought it may be appropriate to bring it up and maybe have you share some of your thoughts on that, especially for the youngsters as they are starting to build their businesses.
Yeah.
But
get back to basics: education, health, family.
I have 1,000 more questions, but I don't have the time.
We should,
I think the time. I think the time is now for the audience to ask some questions of you.
Maybe one question or two quick questions.
What you? Yeah. I mean,
Manoj.
I
Manoj.
don't have any time pressure on me. Unless you guys have time pressure.
We are loud enough, I guess.
Yeah, we can hand up. We can hand up.
I don't need a mic.
He's loud enough.
Sir, I have a question for you. By the way, before my question and comment, you may not know me, but I know enough about you to be inspired to start a company because of a speech I heard in Silicon Valley, probably around 24 years ago. And when I read your book now, I saw you mention again the same gentleman, Mr. Bosch, who made a statement, Indians are not entrepreneurs.
Everybody believes that. If Indians are not managers, Indians are not entrepreneurs, Indians are techies. We are typecast. We have this mathematical gene, just like the blacks have this athletic genes. This gives us this extra dimension of good mathematics, good engineering, but that's it. It's a single dimensional thing, right?
But in spite of hearing that statement, you and your friends, what triggered in you? Because he said you're not entrepreneurs, but I'll give you 15 minutes to decide. What really transpired during those events?
I mean, you can't fight the biases at all, right? People believe what they believe, right? But he was willing to give me, give us some money, and so I was more than happy to have the opportunity to prove him wrong. Valuation didn't matter, or I didn't care. I was happy to have the opportunity to money, to make it happen and prove him wrong, which we did. Right? So John Bosch made 100 times his money, and he lived to brag that he discovered Indians in the valley. So, when people talk about valuations, as a test, for us, there was no such criteria. Just wanted to have the chance to show them.
Thank you. One more question.
Time for one more question. Somebody else? Go ahead.
So it must be very satisfying and fulfilling to have led the life that you have and sitting here today. But during the journey, were there scenarios or opportunities where you felt you had to make a decision where all of this could go away?
Yes, and more than once. My co-founder, Inder Mohan, IIT third graduate, Yale PhD, Doom School, turned out to be that. And he was the CEO. And he was running the company to ground, and he kept blaming, outside factors. So when board, finally moved on him, and fired him, he came and said, hey, we are friends, we are Indians, we should stick together. They asked me, you should walk out with me. And I said, no. You are the non-performer. They are firing you. Why would I leave? You are the done. I had to, have my best friend, family friend. Like I said, you're not a CEO unless you are able to fire your brother. And he got stood up and he said, you backstabber. He walked out, and that was the best that ever happened to me. So, there are things like that, and but I also thought about the book, the life is full of positive surprises, lucky breaks. I got many of those lucky breaks. And, you can do everything right, the lady that said actually smile at you, right?
You're very bullish on India, and so are several of us here. But sometimes it's still chaotic out there. And
chaotic out there is good. Chaotic out there is very good. This is like anything. Remember, this is because of our freedom. We have freedom to be chaotic. In spite of that, we are doing 7 to 8% year on year.
It's true.
Yeah. So, so here's the difference between India and China. India and China became independent around the same time. India chose to be free democracy, China chose to be top-down and communist. China is tidy, disciplined, focused, top-down. India is messy, chaotic, free, from the bottom. The two are moving side by side. China is based ahead. Would you prefer to have the Chinese system in India? Are you willing to give up your freedom, for that? The chaos is freedom. We are integrating a massive diversity. I talked about Punjabis and Tamils and Malayalis and Bengalis and Gujaratis and Odiyas. They have different languages, different cultures, different morals, social morals. But we are one country. So for a positive spin on idea, we have spirited Punjabis. We have cerebral Madrasis. How many are Madrasis here? Madrasis. Cerebral Madrasis. We have literary Bengalis. We have business wala Gujaratis. How many Gujaratis here, right? So we have this, all the ingredients, to make nice khichdi. And the khichdi we are making. And I am 100% sure, the India will survive as a one country, solid and grow 7% year on year. And that's how we should go. Let the Indians become more entrepreneurial. Let them do more and more stuff. Entrepreneurship is more freedom, by the way. China, discipline moral works up to a point. China discipline moral works up to a point. Chinese Communist Party could have done 99 things right, which they have. But that one R-shift of population, one child policy, is not doing that.
Yeah. Well, Kanwal, I could be sitting here and listening to you for hours and hours together. But it's always been a...
Stay here.
You've always been an inspiration. You're an inspiration. You'll always be an inspiration.
Well, that was a very inspiring talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was definitely moved by your personal journey as well.